Hey guys, welcome to 6 Minutes. I'm Jason Fulmore, SC Russell. We are here today, Thursday, July 7th, talking about Team South Carolina and their trip to Fargo. So, as I begin this one, I should have probably prefaced all the other ones that I've done so far in that I want everyone to know that this is not a prediction in any way, shape, or form. I think it's too difficult to take a shot at trying to predict who will finish in the top 8, especially with the brackets so deep. And we'll talk about that as we get further into this. But yeah, I don't do predictions. It's just not really. I think it's too difficult to do. So many things, different things can happen, so on and so forth. The whole idea is to highlight those individuals that are going, or some of those individuals that are going, and probably give you some context, because if you don't follow this at any real meaningful level, you may not have an idea of how big the tournament is, how tough the tournament is, who might be some names to watch in weight classes. You may know just so-and-so from Illinois and not realize that person has been on the world team before or something like that. So that's the purpose of this, and I probably should say that at the front of every single one of these. Anyway, here we let's jump to the schedule for this week, the release of all these. I have already released Alabama, Florida, and North Carolina. If you missed any of those and you're interested, make sure you go back and check them out. Today is obviously South Carolina, so we're going to be talking about the South Carolina men and women as they head to Fargo. And then we've got Georgia and Tennessee coming up around the corner. And then next week, make sure you tune in. I've already posted on the website some of the 16U women that we're going to begin to talk about. We pulled in rosters from all over the place, trying to understand what each of the brackets could look like. And I say could look like because nothing's set in stone. This is just because a person lists, 106 pounds as their weight class, doesn't mean that they'll absolutely be at 106. I don't think that there's any requirement for them to go the weight class that has been put down for USA Wrestling. So it's all kind of not a guess. It's an educated guess, if that. But it gives us a sense of who we might see in each of the different weights. All right. So if you're unfamiliar with Fargo, this is the schedule, and as you can see, it is 7 days, of absolute 100% wrestling. Big, I think 30 mats or so on the floor of the Fargo Dome. Lots of wrestling going on. But I'll try to give you just a general overview. And basically the way this works is as one tournament starts, another one kind of wraps up. Only day that doesn't happen is on the first day and the last day, where no tournaments start on the last day, and we have tournaments wrapping up, and obviously no tournaments wrap up on day one. Saturday morning, July 16th, we kick off with the 16U women, and then we jump to the 16U men in the afternoon. And then on Sunday, junior freestyle men kick off with the 16U women doing their finals match that afternoon. Now, you're just interested in wrestling. You're not interested necessarily in one particular individual. You want to make sure that 1:30, 2 o'clock every single day is about the time that you tune in, because that's when you can watch the finals. Now, obviously, I think most of you are interested in a particular athlete, want to know how they're doing, so on and so forth. Finding the right mats on Flow Arena, track wrestling, and all of that, yeah, it can be a bit of a challenge and a bit of a chore, but, I'm sure you've had some practice up to this point in time. So, try to figure that out as you go through. But if you're looking for just great matches, you want to understand who the best are. After each afternoon, about 1:30, 2 o'clock, is when we will have the medal matches. So 16U women, their medal matches Sunday afternoon. 16U men, freestyle, their medal matches on Monday afternoon, and so on and so forth. All right, so why Fargo? Well, first and foremost, I want everyone to understand USA Wrestling is the governing body for our freestyle Greco. They're the teams Team USA that sends to world championships, ultimately to the Olympics when we're talking about that level of athlete. So, and it's been around for a long time. I think this is year number 51 in Fargo for the junior men. I'm not sure the cadet men have been around quite that long, although pretty close to the 80s, early 80s, I think. And then obviously the women more recently. But this event has been around for a long time. It has grown by leaps and bounds. And we have some information. And that information is brought to you by the Fargo Almanac.com. Jason Bryant of Matt Talk Online produced this almanac. It is 194 pages of just tons of information. Individual listings of all the different All-Americans, where they placed, all these different things. But the one thing that's really interesting about it is the general trend, the general thing that we see. And that is, as you see here, 79% of NCAA Division I place winners since 2006 competed in Fargo. On the women's side, 85.1% of NCAA women's champions in 2020 to 2022 placed in Fargo. But we know with the women's programs, we don't have as much longitudinal data to understand, the impact. But we see the top women compete here in Fargo, and those numbers will continue to hold true. I feel very confident. So we're talking about, if you're looking for success in college, you don't have to go to Fargo, right? That's not a thing. But if you want an opportunity to get in front of some of the top coaches, both men and women across the country, this is a place to do so. All right, let's jump over to the numbers. And as you can see by this slide, we got the first block is the Greco 16U and juniors, the Freestyle 16Us and juniors, women's 16Us and juniors. Down the side is to 2021, 2019, 2018. You can see this is the number of entrants. So Fargo, we're not going to talk about how deep in terms of actual, how many All-Americans are in this bracket. That'll be for later, okay? But just in terms of numbers, right? Let's jump to the freestyle men. Almost 1,600 wrestlers competed in freestyle in junior men a year ago. That means that each bracket was about 106. Okay, now if you were a smaller weight class or a higher weight class, your bracket might have been a little bit smaller. But the middleweight classes, their weight classes were larger, 140, 150 in that bracket. It means you have to win 8, 9 matches to make the podium against some really, really tough competition. Once again, pulled a lot of this information from FargoAlmanac.com. Make sure you check it out. It is a super great resource, provide you a lot of information. So let's jump on to South Carolina and take a look at exactly what we're seeing from this state. And I'll say, just off the top, that it looks like Coach Estrada has put together a really, really good team coming to Fargo this year. Last year, the women were super strong. There were fewer men than maybe I had hoped that there would be, but that's not the case this year. They've been working at it. They've been recruiting. They've been bringing people out. They've been competing, and I don't know if you'll see any more All-Americans than what you saw in previous years, but they certainly are coming prepared. So, all right. So the 16U women, and in recent memory, the women have been a real strength for South Carolina, and that was true. That was true a year ago. Now they've only had 5 All-Americans in the 16U women in their history, but last year, Zoe Estrada was a runner-up. I think it was at 112, and again, you have a runner-up. The only champ was Genesis Patterson back in 2013. I expect, although I think the junior women are stronger than the 16U women rosters as a whole, but I do expect that the South Carolina 16U women will make a run, try to add to that tally, and increase the number of All-Americans. Now, I've combined the women here because the information that I got from Team South Carolina did not break them apart between 16Us or cadets and the juniors. So we're gonna be making a little bit of a guess about who is a junior and who is a cadet until they weigh in. I have a pretty good sense of who is who, but you have to stick with me because I am making a little bit of a guess on some of their where they'll be, what division they'll be competing in. Here's the junior women, and if you don't know the history of the junior women, they've had 12 All-Americans back in the day, and back in the day in this regard is I think 2008, 2009, 10, right around there. Brittany and Brianna Delgado, they were each two-time champs for South Carolina. They hold 8 of the 12 All-American coasters, plaques, stop signs, however you want to call it, whatever you want to call them. So they hold a lot of them. But this year's junior women's group is super talented, and they will almost assuredly add to the number of All-Americans. And even though the junior women teams or junior women's divisions are super deep, I fully expect that you're going to have several that will make a run for the top step. 2 of those that could make a run for the top step are Caitlin Davis and Dadzia Yerby. Both of them were All-Americans a year ago. I think Caitlin was 4th, Dadzia was 8th, but both of them should be in the hunt this year because both of them are back. And on that note, let's go over to the roster. And if you followed South Carolina women over a period of time, there are a lot of names on this list that have competed previously. So Bella Hoffman, Bella is the Tricia Saunders Award winner. She will be in the hunt, I think maybe down at 117, 112. She was 7-1 at junior duels. Only loss was to Kira Cole of Ohio. So she'll be in the hunt. I've already mentioned Zoe. She is a returning 16U runner-up. So I think she's a junior this year. I'd almost put money on it, although that would be never put money on high school kids and where they're going to be and all that jazz. But you get my meaning. And I think she's going to be a junior this year as well. She is up at 122. I think she was unbeaten at junior duels. Caroline Gilstrap was also unbeaten at junior duels, as was Caitlin Davis. So, and then you've got Kennedy Washington, Desi Yerby down at the bottom. I see a lot of junior women is basically what I'm trying to say in this group. The one that that kind of stands out to me that I think is a 16U is Annelise Merlot. Annelise, I believe, she was here a year ago, wrestled in Fargo. She was the 40-kilo representative for Team USA at the Pan American Games just recently in Argentina, where she took first gold. That doesn't guarantee a run to the top of the podium for her here, but I certainly expect that Annelise will be one of those individuals that will be adding to the All-American total for South Carolina in the 16U women. Watch the women for South Carolina. It is a definite strength for their program or for their team. And they'll be in the hunt. I guarantee it. All right, let's jump to 16U men. There have been 3 freestyle All-Americans in the history of Fargo. Ben Connell, J.C. Odo, and B.J. Hurst. They have not had a champ in freestyle. They have had 8 Greco All-Americans in 16U. Most recently, they had 2. There are only 2 for the men a year ago. And that was Giannis Charles and William Jackway. Both finished 8th in their weight classes to make the podium. So 16U men. Now you'll see those names again, Jackway and Charles, but they're not back at 16U. They're up at the juniors. So that transition from 16U to junior, it's a tough transition for a lot of people. We'll see how they fare, but we'll talk about them in a minute. Let's get to the 16U men. And if you know South Carolina wrestling, you're paying attention to some of the young guys that are coming up through. you know, unfortunately, South Carolina didn't have a cadet dual team. So we don't really have an idea of where these individuals stand in relation to other 16Us across the country. But we do know that, you know, Ricky Springs, Jaden Morris, Joseph Morris are super tough. They should be in the hunt and wrestling extremely well. They wrestled extremely well this spring in lots of different events. All right. And then, and I'm looking this up because I'm pretty sure that Hassan Williams, yes, Hassan is actually a returning 16U who wrestled 16U a year ago. So I can't overemphasize how important it is to have that experience. He was 0-2 a year ago, and freestyle at least. But being on the mat, coming to Fargo, understanding the competition, will only serve him well coming back into the same division that he competed at a year ago. A couple other names that you might want to keep an eye on, Kason Howell and Riley Hucks. Both have wrestled well during the season and during the first part of the spring, whether that was at NHSCA or at the Southeast Junior or Southeast Regionals or other events, but their names have popped off as well. So definitely some names to keep an eye on. Getting to the podium in 16U is not the easiest task in the world, but yeah, we'll see how Team South Carolina 16U does. All right, let's jump over to the junior men and their history. And I don't know that everybody knows the history as it relates to junior men. So there have been 9 freestyle All-Americans. 4 times Jordan Wigger was on the podium for Team South Carolina. Their most recent, though, was Davin Powell back in 2015. So freestyle-wise, getting onto the podium in junior men, it's been a minute. Who of this next group gives us the best shot to get to the podium? We'll talk about that in just a second. 7 Greco All-Americans. Terrence Thompson is the only Greco national champion for Team South Carolina in juniors. And again, named Jordan Wigger, who I think out of those 16, he has 5 All-American spots in juniors out of the 16 total, combining both freestyle and Greco. All right, so who has the best opportunity to make some noise on the junior stage? And I want to go ahead and stop because the junior stage is exceptionally difficult. It's exceptionally difficult in all the weight classes. It's really difficult in the middle weight classes where you will have, 8, 10, 12, 14 returning All-Americans and, tons of ranked wrestlers. It is going to be a grind. It'll be tough sledding to get onto that podium. So a couple of names stand out. Obviously, William at the top. Small 100-pounder, I would assume. I think he was 5-3 at junior duels. I think he might have wrestled once up at 106. Certainly one to keep an eye on, as is Teek Strobel, who was, I think, 5-3 at junior duels at 113. Giannis Charles, obviously, down there, he is one of your 2 with William, returning 16U Greco All-Americans, and definitely one to watch as he makes a run. But he actually sits right there in that middle group, 138, 145, 152. Pretty tough sledding in that group. It'll be really interesting to watch him compete as well. A couple other names: Weston Edie, Patrick Brophy, and then big guys, Dontavius Daniels. It'll be really interesting. Again, I don't want to overstate how tough Fargo is, but I do want to make sure that I capture how big the weight classes are and how tough the competition is. Certainly, Team South Carolina has a number of individuals that can make a run and get themselves into a position to be on the podium. but I want to make sure that everybody understands that the path is far from easy. So anyway, not to belabor that point. So that's Team South Carolina. I'm especially excited about the girls. I think the girls are going to make a lot of noise. I don't know that they have enough to make a noise and break into the maybe top 5, top 10 team-wise. I don't know if they have the numbers in junior women, but that is another thing that you should keep an eye on, because if they can get Bella Hoffman and Zoe Estrada and Caroline Gilstrap and Dazia Yerby and Caitlin Davis and so on and so forth, if they can get all of them onto the podium, they have a real shot to make a real statement as a team, which would be fantastic. Anyway, best of luck to Team South Carolina as they head to Fargo. I will be there. Look for a lot of videos, a lot of clips, hopefully some interviews of different individuals that have made the podium, and wishing you guys the best of luck in your travel.